Commander-in-Chief by Norman Crane. To say I was surprised she spoke to me would be an understatement. I was shocked. I almost spilled my drink. The DC bar was rowdy, the band loud, and I was in my corner sipping my drink, watching all the beautiful people, dancing, mingling, young people and powerful people, and everyone with so much potential. "Hi," she said. I wasn't used to anyone talking to me, least of all someone like her. The most I ever got was some snide comments about my appearance. I'm 3'8" and humiliating stares. "Mind if I..." "Please," I blurted out. "What's your pleasure tonight?" She ordered a beer, and we flirted. "Listen," she said after a while. "I'm gonna be honest. I'm here on business. Urgent business. And we're looking for a small man with experience in mechanical operations who's not averse to electronic enhancements and who's looking to make a career change." I sat dumbfounded. Was she fucking with me? Was I gonna end up on TikTok? "If you're not interested, get up and leave." And I stayed. "If you are interested, follow me outside, where you'll see a car waiting. Once you get in, they'll tell you more." It's the opportunity of a lifetime," she said. So I followed her out. But when I got in the car, black, obviously government, she backed out, mouthed "good luck," and the doors locked. The car moved. A screen separated me from the driver. "The following is classified. Kill safe. The president is dead." I awoke indoors. White walls. Panic. "He's conscious." I was in a wheelchair. "Get him in." We burst through a pair of doors to a room where a body, the president's body, lay on a table. Eyes missing and chest cut open, organless and hollowed out, and I was lifted from the wheelchair, dangled over the body. Looking down, I saw blood dripping from the bandages where my legs used to be, and started flailing my arms, screaming. But instead of the screams escaping my lips, they escaped those of the dead president. They stuffed me inside him, sutured me within, and in the cold, fleshy darkness, I heard a voice in my own head. "Stay calm. Look for the screen and control panel." And discovered a brightening rectangle connected by wire to a metallic cube of buttons. A flash of light. And suddenly I was outside under a blue sky. Except I wasn't outside. The president was outside, and I was trapped within his cadaver, seeing through where his eyes once were. "Speak." "What is this?" I asked. I heard the president say. "Try standing and walking." Using a combination of movements, I jerked forward. "To speak to us, think." "What is this?" "The country needs its leader. Consider yourself his puppet master." "You're the puppet master." "Yes, yours." No more private thoughts. "For how long?" "Your position is permanent. Only the president's will change." "I'll be transplanted when the time comes." "I'm entombed," I thought, "in absolute power." Terminus by Norman Crane. I found the two-headed baby deer dying on a bed of soft pine needles under cover of an overturned oak not 5 kilometers from my cottage. Its lungs still pumped, and its crimson heart beat weakly through a thin, translucent skin that decayed before my eyes, until there was no skin, and all the organs lay warm and still in a heap upon the earth like waste. A god evaporated. It is human nature to disbelieve that one may be witness to apocalyptic events. So I did not believe that I, of all people, should be witness to the death of time. Apocalypse. The concept itself is dead. How lucky we were to know time at its cleanest and most linear. We know now that such constant linearity was the consequence of a living entity. It followed the creature like stench follows a skunk, and we basked in it as if it was the natural state of the world. No more. Time no longer heals. Things do not pass, nor pass only to return. At first we believed this would be manageable. Yes, we thought, we will relive our pain, but also our love. Everything shall be magnified. Welcome to an age of great emotions, a new romanticism. Yet we overestimated how much we help. We failed to accept how much we hurt. And we did not realize the nature of evil, which accumulates in a way love does not. To re-experience our love is to know it again and again at the same intensity. But to re-experience pain is to increase its volume until it overpowers us, deafening us to everything else. I will never forget the creature's eyes, full of hatred or hubris, yet seeking aid it knew I could not give. How does one save a dying god? It was not my fault. I was but a child asked suddenly to solve a deathbed equation expressed in an undiscovered mathematics. I had to fail. Yet in failing, I have brought it all upon us. I relive it constantly. Every time its eyes are louder. But it is the hour for my afternoon walk. So I will take a pause and enjoy what remains of living. I will go to my favorite spot overlooking the city and sit on the iron bench from where the view is magnificent. Above me, the clouds will form, a tangle of pain and human corpses, and I will sit and ponder until the first blood drops fall. Then the screaming will begin, and the final storm will rage, beating crimson corpse clouds under a thin skin of dissipating reality, raining blood until we are left warm and still upon the earth. Decimation Wednesday by Norman Crane. The letter arrived by regular mail in a gray envelope containing Willoughby's full name and the familiar seal of government correspondence. It was the third of 5 letters Willoughby and his wife received that day, so Willoughby opened it third, opened and read the 4th and 5th letters, a utility bill and a book of coupons, and said to his wife, "Dear, I have been selected for decimation." "Well, we must find you something decent to wear," his wife responded. "Must it be fancy?" "I feel you should make a good impression." The date of the decimation was Wednesday, June 9th at 1:30 p.m. "Please arrive no earlier than 10 minutes before your appointed time," the letter stated. "We thank you for your cooperation." "Do you think I should take the day off work?" Willoughby asked. "Nonsense," his wife responded. "You can work the morning and simply not return after lunch. Willoughby marked the date in his calendar and proceeded to look through the book of coupons. "Melons look to be a good bargain next week," he said. After he awoke on June 9th, Willoughby shaved, brushed his teeth, and showered. Next, he put on a freshly ironed white shirt and a new suit, ate scrambled eggs with his wife, then double-checked the address on the letter and kissed his wife goodbye. "I suppose this is it," he said. "I suppose it is." "I love you." "I love you too. Good luck." He arrived at the Decimation Center early and waited patiently in his car until 1:20 p.m. before crossing the parking lot and registering at a booth outside the main doors. The man in the booth examined his identity document, asked him his name, birthday, and address, and let him in. "Take a seat until called." "Mr. Willoughby." "Good afternoon," Willoughby said, rising. "My name is Dr. Janet P., and I shall be your decimator. Please, follow me." She led him to a long room flanked by 2 rows of chairs. Most were already filled with men, women, and children. Willoughby sat. He looked down at his hands, then across the room at a woman his age, who smiled. Willoughby smiled too. There was a window nearby, and through it Willoughby could see the effervescent afternoon sunlight. The room had 2 doors, but both were open. In addition to Dr. Janet P., who was now showing a boy to the room's sole remaining empty chair, there were 2 nurses and a government man with a clipboard. The nurses prepared 42 syringes, 1 for each person seated. Dr. Janet P. proceeded down the rows, efficiently administering the lethal injections, and Willoughby watched as one by one the people seated across from him fell gently asleep. When it was his turn, he whispered, "Aren't you afraid someone will run or become violent?" Dr. Janet P. smiled. "Why, that would be ghastly. Thankfully, I believe we are far too civilized for that." Willoughby rolled up his sleeve. Thankfully. He barely felt a thing. String Theory by Norman Crane. "Harold! Harold!" His wife's shrieking voice circumnavigated their tiny home planet. There was no escaping it. We could be on the other side of the world and still hear it. "Harold, I need you to—" "Yes, dear," he said, sighing and stubbing out his unfinished cigarette on an ash-stained rock. He walked home. "There you are," his wife said. "What were you doing?" Before he could answer, "I need you to clean the gutters. They're clogged with stardust again." "Yes, dear." Harold slowly retrieved his ladder from the shed and popped it against the side of their house. He looked at the stars above, wondering how long he'd been married and whether things had always been like this. He couldn't remember. There had always been the wife. There had always been their planet. "Harold!" Her voice pierced him. "Yes, dear." "Are you going to stand there, or are you going to clean the gutters?" "Clean the gutters," he said. He went up the ladder and peered into the gutters. They were indeed clogged with stardust. Must be from the last star shower, he thought. It had been a powerful one. His wife watched with her hands on her hips. Harold got to work. "Harold?" his wife said after a while. If there was one good thing about cleaning the gutters, it was that his wife's voice sounded a little quieter up here. "Yes, dear." "How's it going?" "Good, dear." "Well, when will you be done?" He wasn't sure. "Perhaps in an hour or 2, he said.
Well, dinner will be ready in 30 minutes, but don't come down until you're done.
He wouldn't have dared. 3 hours later, he was done. The gutters were clean, and the sticky stardust had been collected into several containers. He carried each carefully down the ladder and went inside for dinner. After eating, he reclined in his favorite armchair and went to light his pipe.
Harold!
Yes, dear.
Have you disposed of the stardust?
He put his pipe down. Not yet. His hand hovered, dreading the words he knew were coming. He was so comfortable in his armchair.
You should dispose of the stardust, Harold.
Yes, dear. He emptied the stardust from each container onto a wheelbarrow and pushed the wheelbarrow to the other side of the world. He gazed longingly at the ash-stained rock. He had a cigarette in his pocket. There was no way she...
Harold!
Yes, dear, he yelled.
How's it going?
Good, dear. His usual way of disposing of stardust was to dig a hole and bury it. However, in his haste, he had forgotten his shovel. He pondered whether to go back and get it, but decided that there would be no harm in simply depositing the stardust on the ground and burying it later. He tipped the stardust forward and poured it out. It twinkled beautifully in the starlight, and Harold touched it with his hand. It was malleable but firm. He took a bunch and shaped it into a ball. Then he threw the ball. The stardust kept its shape, but Harold sat and began forming other shapes out of the stardust. And those shapes became castles, and the castles became more complex, and...
Harold!
Yes, dear.
Are you finished?
Almost. Harold went to kick down his stardust castle to destroy the evidence of his playtime, only to find that he couldn't. The construction was too solid. Something in the stardust had changed. He bent down and took a little unshaped stardust into his hand and spread it across his palm until he could make out the individual grains. Then he took one grain and placed it carefully next to another. They joined. He added a third and fourth.
Harold?
But for the first time since he could remember, Harold ignored his wife. He was too busy adding grains of stardust together until there were not grains, but a strand, and a stiff strand at that.
Harold!
Once he'd made the strand long enough, it became effectively a stick.
Harold!
He thrust the stick angrily into the ground, and it stayed.
Harold, answer me!
He pushed the stick, but it was firmly planted. Every time he made it lean in any direction, it rebounded as soon as he stopped applying pressure, wobbled, and came eventually to rest in its starting position. He kept adding grains to the top of the stick until it was too high to reach.
Harold, don't make me come out there, do you hear?
Harold stuffed stardust into his pockets and began to climb the impossibly thin tower he had built. It was surprisingly easy. The stickiness of the stardust provided ample grip. As he climbed, he added grains.
Harold, come here this instant. I'm warning you. If I have to go out there to find you...
His wife's voice sounded a little more remote from up here, and with every grain added and further distance ascended, more and more remote. Soon, Harold was so far off the ground he could see his own house, and his wife trudging angrily away from it.
Harold!
She was saying distantly.
Harold, that's it. Today you have crossed the line. You are a bad husband, Harold. A lazy, good-for-nothing...
She had spotted Harold's stardust tower and was heading for it. Harold looked up at the stars and realized that soon he would be among them. Not far now. He saw his wife reach the base of the tower, but if she was saying something, he could no longer hear it. He had peace at last. He hugged the stardust and basked in the silence. Suddenly, the tower began to sway, to wobble. Harold held on. He saw far below the tiny figure of his wife violently shaking the tower. There became a resonance, then a sound, but this was not the sound of his wife. It was far grander and more spatial. Somewhere in the universe, a new particle vibrated into existence.